Hey, yo, so I'm doing this quick little intro before we get into the actual battles themselves. So, all these matches were recorded on different days just because of things going on in my real life. I wasn't able to keep up with the weekly uploads for the first season of the Draft Premier League, although they are currently in season number 2. So, if you guys want to go ahead and maybe check out their battles, check out the rosters and stuff, then if I can, I'll leave a link to the Discord down in the description. If not, then some of these guys are uploading their Draft Premier League Season 2 games, so definitely go check them out if you know who is in the Draft Premier League Season 2. So yeah, but keep in mind that these games are for the end of Season 1 for the My Homies, which was my team, and these are just my games for those matchups. So yeah, it's weeks 6, 7, and potential playoffs if we do good in weeks 6 and 7. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into those, I suppose. Hey, yo, how's it going? SixftHax here. Half of y'all today. Finally, I guess the end of Draft Premier League Season 1. And I apologize that it's just taking me up until this point to upload the remainder of my run with My Homies for Season 1 here. So yeah, I think this match was week number 6 if I'm not mistaken. It was week number 6 out of week number 7, and this was game number 3 or 5, I want to say. We were either 1-1 or 2-2 if I'm not mistaken, and I'm playing Golden Centurion from the Young Goaters, and I believe the Young Goaters at this point in the season were actually undefeated, which is crazy to think that a team would actually go undefeated with the amazing players that there have been in the season so far. So we were currently number 2 and they were currently number 1, and I believe again it was like 1-1 or like 2-3, and we had to win 4 out of 7 of our matches for that week. So yeah, I'm facing Golden Centurion here. Now I'm not gonna go into in depth about the team builders and stuff and matchups just because I want to try to keep this as short as possible, but I have this team here. As you can see, if I'm not mistaken, this was like the final product. We had a very speedy, bulky Mew, Habanberry Kyurem Black, low punny with fake out and high jump kick. We had no, this should have toxic. Yeah, this definitely had toxic over one of its final moves. I'm like 90% sure it did. Next, we had Swords Dance Drapion. We had the Rindoberry Seismitoad, and I don't know if you guys can see the last 2 months. This is very, I'm sorry. Yeah, we have Rindoberry Seismitoad and Scizor here, Akaberry SD. The final 2 team members on my opponent's team were Steelix and I think Roserade, if I'm not mistaken. Ultimately, we figured that Steelix would not be coming because there's no reason for him to bring Bronzong and Steelix, and then Roserade was kind of up in the air. Our final 2 team members were Whimsicott and Electros, both of which honestly did not necessarily have the best matchup going into this game. So not only do we both have very scary teams, but we both also have Mega Lopunny and Kyurem Black, which is actually why I believe I did run max speed on both my Kyurem Black and my Lopunny, just in case it came down to a speed tie, or that maybe he thought I wouldn't bring such speedy variants of those 2 mons, then maybe I could outspeed them and knock them out. Bomberry is actually really nice because if I can surprise his Kyurem Black, that is one scary offensive threat gone. Regardless though, going into this battle, I figured that if I'm able to get rid of the Rotom Wash, then late game my Scizor could easily just SD and sweep. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. So he's going to be leading off with the Rotom as I lead off with my Seismitoad. Turn 1, he turns out to have the Hidden Power Grass as he pops my Rindoberry. This is fine because getting off the Toxic on Rotom is going to be Rotom is going to be amazing for me as I then get on my rocks as he gets up his own rocks on my following Scald. I was honestly just kind of fishing for a burn here on the Bronzong. Along with Rotom Wash, if Bronzong is gone, that makes the job of my Scizor a whole lot easier. So we both end up switching out here as he brings in the Kyurem, I bring in my Drapion. I'm a very speedy Drapion, so I'm pretty positive that unless he is Scarfed, I should outspeed him here as he ends up hitting me up with an Ice Beam if I'm not mistaken, and I do get the poison off, at least with the poison jab, which means I will be able to put this thing on a timer. So I do expect him to want to go for the roost again as I make an aggressive switch into my own Kyurem Black. Here I decide to go for the Iron Head, thinking that maybe he would want to try and bring in the Clefable, just because if I did go for the Earth Power expecting Rotom or Bronzong, then that would allow me to potentially 2-hit KO them or knock them out in case it was a more especially offensive threat. But he does end up bringing in the Bronzong here, and this is actually very annoying because there's no way I knock him out, so I don't want to stay in here as I bring in my Seismitoad. He ends up going for the Hidden Power Fire, probably thinking that I would try to bring in my Scizor, maybe thinking that I would expect him to Grass Knot, thinking I would bring in Seismitoad, or that he would try to pull a double switch here out of Bronzong on my Kyurem Black. But I figured honestly Seismitoad is kind of my best and safest answer to this Bronzong. I don't think he's going to be able to fit Grass Knot on it because of the matchup. So yeah, I really wasn't worried about what he wanted to do. And much like earlier, I'm going to try and fish for a burn on the Bronzong, but instead I burn the incoming Clefable, which very obviously does not matter, as it turns out that he's Cosmic Power. And this is a little bit scary because if my Mew gets statused, then late game this Clefable could easily win the match essentially. So I need to be very careful on how I play with my Mew around the remainder of his team, because if I get status or if I lose it, then that Clefable is going to beat me regardless. So I go for the soft bold as he makes an aggressive switch into his Kyurem Black. I really don't want to risk him being potentially toxic, which is why I switch into my Scizor here as he decides to go for the Ice Beam. Thankfully no freeze, and now there's a few things that could happen this turn. He could either switch out or stay in expecting me to overpredict, but ultimately I want to try and get my Scizor up to as much amount of HP just in case I needed to still pivot into either this Kyurem or potentially his Mega Lopunny, which he still has in the back. So I do decide to go for the Roost, which honestly was the worst play I think I could have made, because in comes the Rotom Wash once again. If I had gone for the U-turn there, that would have been really good for later in the match if I was able to go for the Roost once again, as Hidden Power grasses my incoming Seismitoad. This is not necessarily too bad because looking at the remainder of my team, because it's so offensively based at this point, if I don't let Rotom Wash come in for free, then I should be in a pretty okay spot against whatever he wants to do against me. So I shouldn't be too worried about the Rotom Wash in the long run. So I decided to go ahead and bring in my Kyurem Black here. I think I just end up going for the Earth Power because realistically I lose nothing in doing so. Even if he brings in the Clefable, I have Ice Beam, I have Iron Head, he's at 55%. I'm guaranteed a KO at this point, as in comes a Lopunny, and even if I was Chople Berry, there was no chance I lived any hit. But I'm hoping that maybe he is going to want to go for a fake out directly, and then that way I can bring in my Scizor here. But he does make the better play and goes for the Power Up Punch. Now I don't think Power Up Punch would have actually knocked out my Kyurem Black, but it was a good play on his end to assume that I wasn't going to want to stay in, as I get off 2 bullet punches here on the Lopunny. Down goes my Scizor, and at this point this is probably the most important turn in this battle. There's quite a few things I could do. By immediately bringing in my Lopunny, I think that I'm saying, oh shit, I'm in a very bad spot because my Mew is at 100%. I don't want this Lopunny to turn out to be toxic Lopunny, and then if he toxics my Mew, then I lose the battle, not immediately, but way later in the battle, because Clefable comes in, starts Cosmic Powering, and I'm screwed because there's no way that my Kyurem or my Drapion, as well as my Lopunny here, can deal with Clefable if it starts boosting up. So I figured by bringing in my Lopunny, I could try to put him in a bit of a 50-50 scenario, because I can then go directly either for the fake out, or I can expect him to want to switch out into his best answer for my Lopunny at this point in the match, which is Mandibuzz, and it's got no damage on it, which also means that I'm not going to be able to potentially 2-hit KO him if I go directly for a high jump kick. So at this point I either need to go for the fake out or go for the toxic, thinking that he's either going to bring in Mandibuzz as a toxic or hope that for some reason he stays in thinking that I won't fake out, expecting him to switch out. So my only two options are to fake out or toxic at this current turn in the battle. And at that point, it very well determines on what exactly the outcome of this game is going to be. And I end up making the incorrect play of the two as I go for the fake out and he switches into his Mandibuzz, which turns out to be weakness policy, which I was not expecting whatsoever. Even at -1 defense there, I think he could have still actually lived a high jump kick, and that would have just been really bad for me as well. And I didn't want to risk him potentially trying to just directly Brave Bird my Lopunny, which is why I brought in my Drapion here. And now this Mandibuzz is at +2 speed, guarantees outspeeding the entirety of the rest of my monsters. Basically, this Mandibuzz fucks me up is what I'm trying to say. I don't really know how to word it properly, but yeah, Mandibuzz just kind of tears me open here, and this is where the game honestly goes downhill. My only saving grace against his Mandibuzz was the fact that he toxiced me and I was able to synchronize it over. So yeah, there's not really anything that I can do for the remainder of this battle. There might be a small chance that I can win with Mew, but it ultimately comes down to the combination of the damage I do to him, the amount of mons I'm able to take out before he knocks me out, and then how much damage my Mew is going to be taking the more turns that it is in the battle. So I go for the fake out here. Finally, Toxic, I think, is able to knock out this Mandibuzz. As in comes the Clefable. He turns out to be very physically defensive, which was so annoying, because if I had knocked out Clefable here, that would have given me a bit of a chance in this game. But no, it lives, and he knocks me out with the Moonblast there, even though my Mew does outspeed him, and realistically there's no reason for him to switch anything else in against me. I can just kind of click Psychic here and try to reduce the score, or hope that maybe I can weaken the remainder of his team enough for my Mew to win. As he ends up missing Hydro Pump here, I was really frustrated when he missed Hydro Pump here, because I went for the Soft Bolt thinking that maybe he would just Volt Switch out, but I guess going for Psychic there would have been my better play actually, because I would have been able to 2 KO him, and my Mew probably would have been a little bit healthier. Actually, no, would it have been healthier? I don't think so. Yeah, it would have been, because I wouldn't have taken this Hydro Pump, but I don't think that extra like 15 or 20% necessarily mattered too much in the game here, as I soft bowled once again on his Volt Switch into the Kyurem. It lives! The Toxic, bro. This was just another kind of like salt in the wounds thing, because I take an extra turn of Toxic damage, and now it's basically over for me. So yeah, good game to Golden Sentry on there. I think we actually did end up losing this battle, but it just meant that we were still technically in second place, and so long as we won our week 7 match, we would have ultimately ended off the regular season as number 2, and then the Young Goaters would have ended the season as number 1 still. So week number 7, I'll be honest with y'all, I did not play. I think I was like game number 7, and we had already won the week, and if my game doesn't matter, that means I don't really care to try. So I think I just gave my opponent the forfeit win for week number 7, which means we ended up making it to playoffs as the second overall team. So we need to win 2 more games to hopefully win the first ever Draft Premier League season. So let's go ahead and jump into our first playoff game. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I'm recording this first playoff game like 3 weeks after I recorded my week 6 battle. So yeah, I don't even know what I mentioned in the week 6 match, but yeah, here we are. So this was the original round 1 matchup for the first season of DPL, the My Homies against DPL's worst team, which I think we faced week 1 originally. So it's kind of like a rematch here in the first round of playoffs. So there's only 2 rounds of playoffs, semifinals and finals. So if we win this, then we head into the finals, and hopefully we can win it all for season 1. So I am facing Mayo, one of the better players, I guess you could say, in the Draft League community. I faced him before and he's beaten me before, so going into this game, this match is actually kind of important. Quick little backstory. This game right here was going to determine on whether or not we went to tiebreaker for the first round. I think the score was like 3-3, I think at this point. No, I think it was like 3-4, I want to say. Like, you had to win 5 matches, I think, if I'm not mistaken. You had to win like 1 extra match or something, and then if you tied, you had to go into best 2 out of 3 playoffs. All I know is that if I won this game, we didn't have to go to tiebreaker. If I lost this game, then we did have to go to tiebreaker. So a little bit of pressure going into this game. Not to mention that I had to play like 2/3 of this game while I'm driving on my phone back to my house, because me and Mayo literally could just not find another time to try and play. So yeah, just kind of keep in mind that I'm on my phone throughout like the first 2/3 of this game. So yeah, that was kind of hectic in itself. Now, I did manage to find the team that I brought here to this first round playoff. So we have Mystic Water, Greninja with T-Spikes. He had a Crobat, so he had no grounded poison, so if I get rid of Crobat, I can get up T-Spikes. Mega Medicham just kind of murders everything. Scarf rocks Krookodile, because Scarf Krookodile in general looked really good, and I need Stealth Rocks. Next, we had Zapdos here, which was Agility Bolt Beam, because it could win late game, potentially Assault Vest Gardevoir to deal with his specially offensive threats. And then you can't see little Ferrothorn there. No. Let me see. Ferrothorn here with Thunder Wave as his last move down there. This was kind of my answer to Suicune, and also this could help me hazard stack him. So yeah, we have all types of hazards here in this first round, as he does have a Crobat, but once Crobat is gone, we should be good to go. The other 2 team members that Mayo had options of bringing were Bronzong and Throw. I really felt like Throw was only going to be brought if he needed a dedicated answer to my Greninja, I believe, because otherwise he had nothing for Greninja, and then Bronzong just had a really rough matchup. So looking at the team preview here, I figured that my best lead is probably just going to be my Krookodile, because I'm very scared of him leading off of Crobat. Crobat being his lead just makes so much sense to me in this game. So that way I am Scarf Krookodile. I could potentially just go straight for the Stone Edge or knock him off immediately, or potentially just get up my Stealth Rocks. Another option was to also maybe lead with my Medicham, but I figured, hey, Krookodile pairs up really well against everything, as it leads off with the Tyranitar. I don't think he's going to want to stay in here, so I decided to go ahead and just get up my Stealth Rocks, as he makes an aggressive switch directly into his Crobat. Turns out that he does have the Black Sludge, so expecting him to maybe want to go for Defog or the U-turn, I switch into my Zapdos. I think this also covered him potentially just wanting to double if he didn't have the U-turn, so I could go from there. Unfortunately, I have pressure, I think, on my Zapdos, and I kind of wish I did have static, but it is what it is, as I tried to go for the HP Ice, expecting him to maybe try to bring in Garchomp. This was a bit of a bad play on my end. I don't think I should have done that. Maybe just switching out directly would have been a little bit better, in my opinion, because there's no real reason for him to switch directly into Garchomp on Zapdos this early on in the battle. I at least get off some damage on the Tyranitar, which is nice, so I'm going to try to bring back in my Krookodile, expecting him to want to go for a Rock move, Dark move, or get up his Stealth Rocks, but Mayo makes an amazing play, goes straight for the Stone Edge and bops my Krookodile. Now, this is obviously very scary, because if I lose my Krookodile, that means I lose Stealth Rocks, and that means I have no way of trying to chip down this Crobat, which in my opinion, Crobat was easily the biggest nuisance going into this battle that Mayo could have had on his team. So I need to be very careful on how I play my Krookodile for the rest of this match, as I decided just to get up my rocks again. I guess in hindsight, I could have doubled here or made an aggressive play and gone for the Stone Edge, because there's no reason for him to have left in Tyranitar, but it is what it is. As I bring back in my Zapdos, he does go once again for the Defog, as I'm going to try and be cheeky and pull a double into my Medicham, thinking he would bring in the Tyranitar, and this time if he did bring in the Garchomp at full HP, unless he's like Bandit, I think there should be no way that Garchomp ever one-shots Mega Medicham, but he turns out to have the Toxic and catches my incoming Mega Medicham, which is a little bit annoying, because now I don't necessarily feel comfortable and staying in against this Crobat if he feels like being very, very ballsy, as he tries to Toxic me, probably thinking that I would bring in my Zapdos. That was a good play on his end, but I figured Ferrothorn was a little bit safer for me to have brought in this scenario, as I make a bit of a questionable play here, and I leave in my Ferrothorn. Now, the thought about this was that once I get rid of Tyranitar, my Zapdos can kind of just come in and potentially win the battle. Like, all I really need to do after weakening or getting rid of Tyranitar here is just weaken Gardevoir, get off a little bit of chip damage on Garchomp, and then from there Zapdos, after an agility, basically wins. Yes, Ferrothorn does get severely weakened, I guess, but Scald isn't going to be doing anything to me from Suicune anyways, and worst case scenario, I can at least try to break Suicune's sub and ensure he's not behind a sub, and then from there hopefully revenge kill him with something else on my team. So I figured if I stay in here, I can live one hit, get off a huge amount of damage on Tyranitar, or potentially knock him out. And because he did go for the superpower, I will be able to finish him off with the power whip, which means now my Zapdos is looking amazing in this matchup. All I need to do is chip down the right things accordingly, as unfortunately he misses a focus blast here with the Thunderous. I was sacking off my Ferrothorn in the long run. I'm not sure how much it did matter, but I'm sure it kind of did play a bit of a role later in this game. Either way though, I think I switch out here into my own Gardevoir, thinking that he would just try to go for another Focus Blast, and with the Leech Seed I could still remain very healthy, but he ends up making an aggressive switch here into his own Gardevoir, which is Mega Gardevoir. I'm not sure why he brought in his Mega Gardevoir on my Ferrothorn. Maybe he thought that I would actually switch out potentially into something like Medicham or Zapdos, expecting another Focus Blast, or he did anticipate that I would bring in my own Gardevoir, and he thought that his Mega Gardevoir could beat my Gardevoir. But my Gardevoir was specifically EV'd to originally just take on his Mega Gardevoir, but if needed, I could also take on any of his other, especially offensive threats. So this actually ends up working out extremely well for me, because there should be no way that his Mega Gardevoir ever beats me 1v1, because I'm still at full HP, I'm assault vested, I'm very, very fat, and 2 Shadow Balls into a Shadow Sneak guarantee knocking out his Mega Gardevoir, which is amazing, because here he probably thought that he was going to be able to finish me off, but no, we got the tech with Shadow Sneak, and down goes his Mega Gardevoir, as I can now sack off my own Gardevoir, because again, it was really only here for his Mega Gardevoir. Now I don't necessarily need it. Yeah, Thunderous is a little bit annoying, but unfortunately for him, I still have Ferrothorn in the back, so I can always kind of rely on that. So as he knocks me out, I bring in my Medicham here. Again, he shouldn't be able to knock me out with any one hit. I see that he's not in life form. I don't think that he's banded, so I end up making a very aggressive play here and going for the Zen Headbutt as he brings in the Crobat. Now obviously this seems a little bit odd if you're watching this, but I think this turn took about like a minute and a half. This whole battle itself took about like an hour, I want to say, honestly, which is crazy, because this is a very important game. So Mayo definitely was trying to think out through his plays, and again, I'm driving while we're doing this, so yeah, I think after like a few turns later is when I finally come home. But the thing about this play right here is that I talked to Mayo after the game, and he thought that I would not have Zen Headbutt, or that I wouldn't go for Zen Headbutt in that scenario, because Zen Headbutt didn't originally knock out Garchomp at full HP, so he was expecting me to go for Ice Punch or a fighting move to try and guarantee the KO on Garchomp, and Crobat could still easily tank a Ice Punch, and then from there, if he plays it correctly and predicts me to switch out, he could roost off the damage, or he could just be aggressive and go straight for the Brave Bird in hopes of a double down. But the thing about it on my side is that all I need to do at this point, because Mega Gardevoir is gone, Tyranitar is gone, I just need to get off damage on Garchomp. I don't know if he's Yachi Berry or not, and at this point I figured that if he was Yachi Berry, it's in my best interest to go for the Zen Headbutt to guarantee him in range, or where even if he is Yachi Berry, a HP Ice from my Zapdos still knocks out the Garchomp. So that was my thought process, which was different from what he was thinking, and unfortunately what he was thinking was incorrect, because I did go for the Zen Headbutt and I get rid of the biggest just nuisance to my team in this match. Yeah, Zapdos still is not able to sweep, but the fact that I don't have to deal with Crobat is amazing, because now if I can get on my hazards, they will be here to stay for the remainder of the battle. So down goes the Crobat, as in comes back the Garchomp here, and he's going to decide to go ahead and get up his Stealth Rocks, just knowing that I probably don't have the Ice Punch and that he can live a hit here. Plus, if he gets up Rocks, this means he does get off chip damage on the rest of my team to potentially allow Suicune or Thunderous to set up and win, which hopefully will not happen, as I should still be able to live an Earthquake from this range. If he had Outrage, it would have knocked me out, but it turns out that he doesn't have it, as I will be able to finish him off. Because of the Rough Skin and the Toxic, it is going to be a double down, and now things get a little bit odd here. So yes, I am up 4-2, but the issue with this is that if this is a nasty plot Thundurus, then it could potentially sweep me depending on how things go. So assuming that he would probably try to bring in the Thundurus, I decide to bring in my Zapdos, because even if he is a nasty plot, I am agility, so I can agility up, I outspeed him, I can roost off the damage, I don't have to be taking neutral damage from Thunderbolt or super effective damage from HPIs, because he's already shown Focus Blast, so I'm assuming he's got HPIs, Thunderbolt, and Nasty Plot as his final 3 moves. So that's ultimately why I decided to go straight for the agility here, as he does turn out to have the Nasty Plot. This is fine, this is good, because now I can go ahead and start clicking HP Ice to do some damage, but it turns out that he has agility, which means this is actually really bad, because I did not think he would be Double Dance. The fact that he's Double Dance completely changes the scenario of this battle, because at +2, if I am not healthy enough, he can still one-shot me with Thunderbolt. Or it comes down to a damage roll on whether or not a +2 Thunderbolt from him knocks me out. So if I would have known he was agility, it would have been better for me to have just gone directly for the Thunderbolt instead of going for the agility in the first place, because then from there, 2 Thunderbolts always knock out Thundurus, and I wouldn't have had to have been so worried about the potential damage roll, I think. Actually, no, wouldn't have really changed anything. I guess it could have been aggressive right off the bat with the damage, and I guess it still would have come down to a damage roll. I'm not entirely too sure, but I don't think agility was my better play after finding out that he was agility himself, but he goes for the Thunderbolt. I do manage to live on 2%, and we are going to be able to essentially just win the battle here. I think he had about a 50-ish% chance to get the roll. I think it was like 50 or a little bit less than 50 of a percent chance to get the damage roll to actually knock out my Zapdos in that case, but that game definitely came down to that turn right there on whether or not Thunderbolt knocked out Zapdos, because at +2 he would have been able to outspeed the rest of my team, although I guess realistically he would have had to hit another Focus Blast on my Crocodile, so I guess that still would have given me a chance to also win, but then I would have had to rely on him missing a Focus Blast on my Crocodile, and he already missed one earlier, so that would have kind of sucked. But at this point the game is over, there's nothing Suicune can do, and we are going to be able to win the first round of the DPL playoffs. We're going to head into round number 2 and our finals game here. Okay, so this is going to be our game for DPL finals here for season number 1. So we are facing a team that we actually faced in week 3 or 4, I want to say. And the funny thing is, when we played the Platoon Goons, this is the team that we're facing, the My Homies versus Platoon Goons, I was the only loss for that entire week. So it was like 6-1 at the end of the week, and I was the only person on my team that had lost that week. So obviously, I want to redeem myself for the finals here. At this point, I think we were either up 1-0 or 2-0. So we were sitting in a pretty good spot, and of course this is against 6th Gen. I only want to play 6th Gen for DPL because I'm going to do 7th Gen anyways for other leagues. So we are facing King Bunny. I've never played King Bunny, never heard of King Bunny. I did see some people say he was good. My teammates said he was a pretty good player as well, but hopefully we can be better here. So his other 2 mons that he had an option of bringing were Jolteon and Rhydon. Obviously you're not going to bring Rhydon against a rain squad. And we actually did finally for once bring the rain squad here because it had such a good matchup. So taking a look at our team real quick here, we have, I guess, mixed defensive Politoed, mostly physical defensive for his mons. Psychic was there obviously for the Toxicroak. We have Kingdra, which Kingdra absolutely just murders him once Toxicroak is gone or weakened. Mega Medicham for the most part also just kind of did Mega Medicham things and came in and got a kill. We have very fat, speedy Crocodile with knockoff and toxic, earthquake, and rocks, of course, being very important. We have spiking Ferrothorn here. I'm not sure why I did have Aqua Berry if we had the rain. I don't quite remember. I'm guessing if he had brought HP Fire on Kyurem or the Starmie is what I'm thinking. Also, I guess Fire Blast on Togekiss made a lot of sense. And then finally off, we have just speedy, defensive, toxic Zapdos because it looked very good in this matchup in general. So, taking a look at the team preview here, I was, of course, not surprised to see they didn't bring Rhydon. Jolteon and Toxicroak, I think, were like the last 2 mons I thought he would bring. Toxicroak could actually be very annoying depending on what set it is, and I have no idea what type of set of Toxicroak he would want to bring, so I gotta be careful with that. Landers in 6th gen is still very scary. It could be set up. I have to watch out for that, but it makes sense for it to be Stealth Rocks because it is his only rocker. Togekiss could be very annoying if it's Scarfed or set up. Kyurem Black has no switching, so I need to be very careful with that. This was Mega Scizor, if I'm not mistaken, and then Starmie shouldn't be an issue so long as I have my Ferrothorn around here. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. I think I did just end up leading off with Mega Medicham. This is 6th gen, so I don't get my speed boost initially on the first turn, so Mega in turn 1 was definitely the best thing I could have done here. As he switches into his Togekiss, turns out that he is a very fat, physically defensive Togekiss, if I'm not mistaken. So not wanting to potentially be Fire Blasted on a switch into my Ferrothorn, I switch into my Zapdos as it reveals to have the Toxic. So that is a little bit annoying, but it shouldn't be entirely too big of an issue as I pull a double here, expecting him to want to switch out, and we're both just going to exchange Stealth Rocks here. As it turns out that I am faster than his Landers, which means he's not Scarfed, so he could be something on a Yachi Berry, Leftovers, or Rocky Helmet potentially. As I try to scout out for the item, I knock off the incoming Mega Scizor. I'm going to switch into my Ferrothorn, expecting him to want to go for the U-turn, because if Scizor is low, even if it's Swords Dance, it shouldn't be able to freely SD later in the match, and unless Scizor gets up to like the +4, it shouldn't really be that big of an issue. So I think I end up getting a layer of Spikes here, or I go for the Leech Seed, if I'm not mistaken, as he switches into the Starmie. And I thought that, well, Starmie can't touch me, right? I'm just going to stay in here, and I'm going to go for Leech Seed, thinking he's going to switch. No, freaking Thick Bunny here, King Bunny, busts out the Reflect type, and I thought that was actually really fire, because now I have no idea what I'm going to do against this Starmie. My hope is that I can maybe bring in Zapdos here and scare him out with the thought of Heat Wave. So thinking that he would be fearing the Heat Wave, I decided to go for the Roost here, as he unfortunately brings in Kyurem Black. I have literally nothing to switch into Kyurem Black, so I'm either forced to sack off Zapdos here or potentially sack something else off on my team. And I figured I at least have Toxic on Zapdos, so if he does predict me to switch out, I don't think he's going to go straight for an Ice Beam. So I can go for the Toxic, maybe try to rack up a few turns of Toxic, but he does go straight for the Ice Beam, just nuking my Zapdos, and now I'm just going to try to get off as much damage as I can with the Heat Wave as he ends up finishing me off. Losing Zapdos this early does really suck, because now I lose something that could have outsped Toxicroak, Landers, and potentially his Togekiss. I think I was running enough speed for his Landers, if I'm not mistaken. As I bring in Mega Medicham, I do get a little bit lucky here, not gonna lie, and I'm able to flinch him with the Zen Headbutt, putting him in range of where I can just knock him out with the Ice Punch. So we're sitting in a pretty okay spot here. Unfortunately, I don't one-shot this Togekiss. I know he's very physically defensive, so I am going to be forced to switch out here as I bring in my Politoed, and then I switch into my Ferrothorn. I guess in hindsight, what I should have done was just brought in my Ferrothorn initially instead of bringing in Politoed. I just kind of took unnecessary damage on my Politoed in that case. Although, I guess if I brought in Toad, maybe he thought that I could be like Specs or Scarfed or something, and he wouldn't feel comfortable in staying in here. So I guess that's also a thought that could have been going through my head at the time. But either way, I switch into my Ferrothorn here, and I think I try to go for a Leech Seed, as I actually go for Gyro Ball. Okay, I guess I was just trying to get off damage on Togekiss. Either way, though, I think I do Leech Seed this turn now, because I don't want him to just really start Swords Dancing in my face. This thing boosting up too much is very, very terrifying, as I make an aggressive, super aggressive switch here into my Crocodile. I think the main reason I did this is because I thought he would go for the Roost, so this way I could bring in Crocodile, intimidate him, and then go from there. But he ends up going for the knockoff, which was a really good play on his end. I guess he was just trying to ensure getting rid of my Ferrothorn, which is perfectly fine, as he does knock off my Leftovers. This is a little bit bad, but it's not entirely too big of an issue, as I get up a layer of rocks here, as I get up my rocks here. The main reason I got up rocks and I didn't go for Earthquake is because I didn't knock him out at the range of HP that he was at anyways with Earthquake. So I figured that if I want to get something out of this turn, I might as well at least get up my rocks. There was also a chance that he would just go straight for the U-turn, and if he went for the U-turn, that means he didn't go for the Roost, which also means he would be very, very low. And because I got all my hazards up, if they were here to stay for the remainder of the battle, then Scizor would be very pressured, and it wouldn't be able to set up later in the game. So getting up rocks there, I guess, isn't entirely too bad, as I do decide to switch out here, thinking that this turn he may go for a switch or try to bullet punch me, as he actually goes for another Swords Dance. And that's very, very terrifying, because now this thing is at +3. I guess the nice thing is that, yeah, I do have Kingdra in, but the issue now is that I need to Hydro Pump. Like, my gut was telling me to Draco Meteor And I should have honestly Draco Meteored because there's no reason for him to leave in Scizor here. Like, why would you leave in Scizor on a Kingdra when you know very well that I'm in a very bad spot, and Scizor still being a massive threat later in the match that can come in to SD is very problematic for me. So I should have gone with my gut here, and I should have known that he wasn't going to stay in, but I end up going for the safe play as I Hydro Pump the incoming Toxicroak. This is very annoying because now I am forced to switch out here, as it turns out that he has a substitute on his Toxicroak. Now this I was not expecting whatsoever. So now I'm just trying to go through my mind on like what could he possibly have on this Toxicroak. I have no idea, as it turns out that he's sub-toxic. And then above that, it turns out he's actually running the Protect, which makes this set even worse, because if this comes in on the rain, he's gaining back leftovers and dry skin with his HP, which means he's gaining back 12% HP every turn, and he can always protect every other turn, and that is very, very terrible. So I am able to force him out. I high jump kick the incoming Starmie, as in comes Landorus. Don't want to risk him being Yache Berry, so I switch into my Krookodile as he does decide to go for the Earthquake. This is fine because I'm faster than him. I'm just going to go for the knockoff. He does have Scizor in the back, but with it being at 76% HP, me having up my hazards, it's not going to be comfortably switching in. So I'm guessing he just wants to try to get off as much damage on my Krookodile as possible at this point, as I do manage to get rid of his Yache Berry, which is nice because now he's guaranteed to be knocked out by Ice Punch from my Mega Medicham. As down goes the Landorus. I was actually a little bit scared that he would switch out here, but realistically, there's no reason for him to do that. If you brought in Scizor for some odd reason, then I high jump kick the next turn. If you brought in Togekiss, I 2 KO him, and then if you brought in Toxicroak, I knock him out with Zen Headbutt. So things aren't looking entirely too bad. We're still in an okay scenario here, I want to say. As in comes the Togekiss. I still don't think that he was actually in range of Ice Punch being able to knock him out at 58%. I think I needed to get off like 10% more damage, and I guaranteed him in range of Ice Punch. Or I think if it was at 58%, it was a roll, and it was a roll that was nowhere nearly good in my favor. And because I need to keep my Mega Medicham around to try and break through the Toxicroak, there's no way that I'm going to risk my Medicham here in this scenario. So I switch out into my Polydode just to try to get up the rain one last time. I have 8 turns that I can hopefully take advantage of, and then from there pull out the victory as I bring in my Kingdra here. I do believe I go for the Ice Beam because it did the most damage to the Toxicroak, and it did the most damage to Togekiss, which I'm pretty sure he wouldn't want to leave in anyways, as I do a solid 32% to the Croak. This is nice because now we're gonna have to kind of play the mind games here, and this is where I'm just gonna kind of speed this portion up, because this Toxicroak, man, oh my god, this thing was such a problem. You guys have no idea how much of an issue this thing really was. Like, I had a feeling he would bring Toxicroak. I didn't think it would be some crazy max Spadef sub-toxic Protect set. So very, very good prep on King Bunny's part there, man. This Toxicroak absolutely just messed me all types of way. So yeah, he just kind of plays around me this entire matchup here, because there's a lot of 50-50s that are going on here, and ultimately I end up getting most of them incorrectly, unfortunately, as here I go for Zen Headbutt and I miss on his failed Protect, and that is basically the nail in the coffin. I think I just lose the battle at that point. Missing that Zen Headbutt just really sucked. I think he actually ends up getting a double Protect as well, if I'm not mistaken, or I think the matchup was lost a little bit earlier as well, because I think I either didn't switch in on the correct turn that I should have, or I went for a move that I shouldn't have gone for, because I remember specifically playing through the match here, then rewatching it and pinpointing when I should have been more aggressive with my Medicham, when I probably should have brought it in a turn sooner, and because it didn't bring it in that turn sooner, it really cost me. I had this game like 2 months ago, so yeah, I don't quite remember, but I know that if it wasn't for that miss or something earlier, I think I still would have won. But at this point, I can't really win. There's no real good way that I knock out the Scizor with the combination of Togekiss and the Toxicroak in the back. So yeah, unfortunately, I still take a loss here. against the Platoon Goons, if I'm not mistaken. That's who we were playing. And funnily enough, the rest of my team ends up winning their battles, and I am once again the only person that lost to the Platoon Goons. So thanks to the rest of my team for carrying my dead weight, and my homies were able to be the first ever Draft League Premier Champions. I probably mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but Season 2 is currently going on. I wanted to upload this before Season 2 got any more into the season, because I haven't been able to get around to uploading this. So yeah, I apologize that this was done very, very late and that Season 2 is already going on. I'm not participating in Season 2, but good luck to everybody in Season 2. Good luck to all my teammates who were on my team for Season 1, who are still playing in Season 2. And with that being said, if you guys did enjoy this, you know what to do. Leave a like, leave a comment. I will see you all tomorrow. So thank you all for watching. Later, everybody.
Cause my brain and heart are both tied in the knot, and this hinders me from crying a lot. This causing me to show no emotion. But when I said I cared, I wasn't joking. But I guess it's too late for me to become broken. For now, I'm living with no more pain, tears, or hoping. I'm just coasting. Yeah, I said I'm coasting. No more pain, tears, and hoping. For real.